Hello and welcome to this session. My name is Akshay Kumar and I am working with the School of Computer and Information Sciences in the Indira Gandhi National Open University, and I'll be discussing with you about the topic project scheduling. But to begin this discussion, let us first define what is scheduling. Well, scheduling has been defined as a complex activity for deciding the starting and completion date of any activity of the project. So it is the start and the end, and between that what you do is schedule the project. Various activities of the project, maybe designing, maybe it is commissioning, maybe it is implementation, whatever you want to do about the project. Scheduling of activities begin only after determination of the time of activities. Now this is important observation. What happens that if I do not know time of doing a particular activity, right, then how can I schedule various activities? So I need to determine the time of activities in order to, if I really want to do good scheduling of a particular project. Then effective project scheduling is a critical component of successful time management as far as completion of a project is concerned. So completion of a project relates to in this particular sense that work has to be completed, then a good schedule leads to timely completion of work. Another issues which relates to scheduling happens to be scheduling converts the plans, scope and cost into an operational timeline. Now that's a very interesting statement, because the plans and the scope and whatever you are stating now ultimately has to be put in the form of complete timelines. The primary objective of scheduling is to ensure that the project is completed as per the computed completion date and time, and that is what is the essence why we schedule. In addition, there are several other objectives of scheduling, and one of them is to maintain the availability of all kinds of resources during the project implementation period. Now this is a very important thing to understand, that not only the time, but scheduling also has to deal with the alignment or assigning of various resources which are required for a particular project. In addition, how do you define a project schedule? Well, project schedule includes the planned start and finish date, duration and resources assigned to each activity. So in order to do that, we have to get this particular information. If you don't have that information, then your project schedule cannot be created. Then the project schedule also communicates what tasks need to be done, right, and which organization resource will be allotted to complete those tasks in that time frame. So in a sense, it has to deal with not only the resources, not only the time resources, but also infrastructure resources, manpower resources and other resources which might be required for completing the project. So this is to be communicated by a project schedule, and it should be comprehensive and easy to understand. If project schedule is not comprehensive and easy to understand, it is not going to be a good project schedule. So what are the basic components of project schedule? Well, it's a very interesting thing. The very first thing which we would like to talk about as far as component is concerned, what is to be done, right? What needs to be done, okay? Then who will do it, where it will be done and when it will be completed, right? So these are four basic things which we need to communicate when we are trying to define the project schedule. There are 2 or 3 different types of project schedules which can be made by you. The first one is called the master schedule. A master schedule is a simplified list of tasks with a timeline or project calendar. So it clearly defines that these are the tasks, this is the timeline, these are the things which will be required to be complete this particular stuff. On the other hand, we also have another type of project schedule which is called summary schedule, which tracks project progress and key deliverables, but not every task required to complete the project. So you can put some macros, macro kind of work schedules in this particular summary, where major activities are listed, right? And the project manager, or maybe the CEO of the company may only be interested that how various projects are doing and what stages they are. They may not be interested in the master schedule. They might only be interested in the summary schedule. And finally, there is a detailed project schedule which identifies and records every project activity which is possible. So that is the interesting kind of things which we need to understand. Then what is the process of project scheduling? Well, project scheduling also starts with the process of planning, right? Once you do a basic planning for the project, then the next stage is that define project activities. So what would be the what would be basic activities which you will be requiring to do? Then determine how those project activities are dependent. So these are the in a sense that along with the planning, these are the things which you really need to understand. So you do the planning, like what and how those various activities are to be performed, but in order to do so, you will define project activities, you will determine their dependencies, which are very, very important. Then you determine the sequence of those activities in a sense, right? So you find out the dependencies, then obviously the sequence is to be determined, which will be followed by resource estimation. What resources will be required for it, how many manpower will be required or women power will be required for a particular situation, right? Then the time estimation of various activities, and it will be leading to preparing of schedule, and finally this particular process will be summed up with the monitoring and control activity, because that is something which is part of a complete project management scenario. Well, as far as planning is concerned, now in the first stage of planning, you establish the procedure and policies which will govern the project, right? So who will be responsible for what activities, what processes will be followed, right? So all these things are done in the planning phase. Then outline all the resource and contingency. So what resources you have, right? Which may include your cash also, your people also, right? And other infrastructure resources in case they are needed. Right, so all those things you got to list, and various contingencies associated with those projects. If something is to be maintained, like how much maintenance schedule, or what those kinds of things are needed even for those. Right, determine the team members to be involved in the project. The team members are the key resource you have. So you got to do a good survey of team members who will be involved with the project. And then you got to list project stakeholders also, right? So the stakeholders also should be told how the project is being scheduled and or being planned, so that you can get a go ahead from the stakeholders. Then authorize the procedure for approving changes in schedule. So who will be authorized, how we can make changes, who will be discussing about the changes, right? So all these things goes into the planning part of it. Then the next stage we define project activities. Now when we define project activity, we list out all the activities needed to deliver that project, right? For larger projects, you can use charts and tables to list activities and probably sub-activities of those activities, because one of the key consideration here is when you are scheduling, the micro level scheduling is important than doing a macro level scheduling. Like you can simply say one activity design and it may take 4 months, right? Now that is not a good way of defining your project activity. A good way of defining your project activity may be to break down the design into various components, maybe the infrastructure procurement, then people training, like that. Whatever, I mean, activities you require, you must list and then break those 4 months into those smaller activities. Then divide project into different activities on the basis of time required to complete each activity. So you will be then you are basically dividing the time, right, among the various activities. And finally, activities should be measurable and related to project. Now, why measurable? You know, measurable is very, very important, because if you do not know how much time and effort will be required for a particular piece of work, then you are not be able to make your schedule, right? So time is one of the most essential criteria, and cost, yes. So though both the things are going to be, I mean, cost in the scheduling may be in the form of what you can say is the resource required. Okay. Then determine dependencies, the next step. Identify which activities are dependent on other activities to be completed. So if you can define that, then it will be like what activities which can be done in parallel, what activities which has to follow, right, a particular given activity. So this is important, the determining dependencies. So correctly determining the activities which are needed to be completed before another activity can be performed is essential, because that hallmarks the success of a particular project. So on the basis of this, you do the determination of sequences. Once the dependent activities are identified, we arrange them in a particular sequence, put the activities which are required to be completed before another activity can be performed. So that that is the kind of sequence you make, and you involve focusing on the order in which all these activities should be done. It includes the parallelism, right? What activities can be done in parallel, what activities has to be done in series. All these things have to be duly understood or determined by you. Involve creating the most efficient flow of activity. So you got to produce the best schedule as far as schedule is concerned, the best schedule among all those, that is the sequence of activities. Next, you have to do is the resource estimation. Now, resources required to perform any activity includes the personal, hardware tool if you require, software programs, and a workplace, right? So consider other resources that are specific to your project also. Ensure that the personnel involved in any activity is not involved in multiple activities. If that happens, then you will be constrained, your project will be constrained, and once your project is constrained, you may run out of schedule, like your project time or your completion time may run out of schedule, and that means lots of losses. Overlapping of resources can lead to delay in project, which we normally do not want to happen naturally, right? If due to some unforeseen reason it is happening, yes, we can't do much about it. But then if it is happening because of unplanned activities, then it is not really required. Then comes the time estimation. Right. Now, time estimation involves determining the time each project activity will take to get completed. Overestimating could leave team members or other resources sitting idle. So we'll be wasting precious resources, the team members, right? Estimate time on the basis of industry standard or similar activities. So this is technically an estimation, and you should not be overestimating as well as you should not be underestimating. However, in the absence of any industry standard, opt for average of the best, worst, and most likely scenarios, right? This is normally done when you are creating your PERT, right? And how it can be used, we'll discuss with the help of an example also. Then finally, you will be preparing schedule, right? And when you are preparing a schedule, you will be assigning a start date, you will be start dates to various activities, and then due dates of those activities as far as completion is concerned, right? Multiple formulas are used for developing the project schedule that can be utilized for preparing schedule. More prominent mode model which is used is normally the critical path method, which we had discussed in the last video session, and which is very, very important that you use PERT and critical path method for preparing your schedule. Finally, the last activity as far as project scheduling is concerned is monitoring and control. It is in fact for the project completely, right? Monitoring and control of project schedule continues to for the entire duration of the project. If you don't monitor, making schedule is not enough, but monitoring that particular schedule meticulously over a period of time is the main essence of the project. Then it involves preparing reports and assessing the progress against the schedule, managing performance and communicating with the team. So you basically are controlling, not only controlling, but you are communicating, constantly communicating with the team, where they are lagging, where they might like to put more efforts, right? So that way it is very, very interesting. It becomes a very interesting scenario, and project team becomes very, very important. The monitoring and control is very important activity, which ensures that each activity is on schedule and determines whether corrective action needs to be taken if delays are occurring. Now this is one of the most important part of project control. Why? Because if activities are not at schedule, you will be failing. And remember, your project doesn't fail on the last day of completion, right? Or the deadline, on the day of deadline. It fails if there is a failure in between. We need to catch those failures and may need to adjust so that projects get completed in time, or at least we are able to predict how much delay will occur because of unforeseen reasons, right? Now, the importance of scheduling, if we can categorize. So scheduling gives a clear picture of requirements of the project, right? So it is going to tell you that these activities are to be performed, these are the manpower needed, these are the hardware needed, these are the personnel needed, and this may be the cost layout. Maybe cost layout, maybe you can keep separately, but then at least you can do some cost layout, maybe not as a scheduling activity, but then as a support activity. It helps in smooth execution of the entire project, right? So the entire project is dependent on your scheduling. If you do schedule well, project execution is going to go well. Early detection of issues is execution of the project. So this is what is the most early detection of issues is important than just finding yourself at the end of the project where you say, oh, we have not done this, we have not done that. That kind of a thing is not going to work. Assign responsibilities and accountabilities, right? So this will be there if you are clear about, if you are very clear about the scheduling, what way the things have been scheduled, who will be responsible for what activity, and so on and so forth. Efficient allocation of resources. Now this is another importance as far as project scheduling is concerned. So that is as far as the importance of scheduling is concerned. Well, so far we have discussed about various aspects of scheduling. But what are the techniques of performing scheduling? Well, there are many different ways you can do the scheduling of the project, and one of them may be just creating a task list and creating a time schedule in that particular task list. Now that may be very simple. You can do it for a very, very simple small project, or you can use calendars as far as doing the scheduling is concerned. In addition, whatever techniques we have discussed in the last two lectures was about the Gantt chart, the critical path method, and PERT. Now these are very important tools or techniques which are used for scheduling of a particular project. Well, so far we have discussed is the general basis or activities of scheduling. Let's try to put an example which is going to help you in understanding what we mean by creating a schedule from PERT or related kind of activities or critical path method. Well, look into the diagram which in this particular screen. What you can see, there are activities from event 1 to 2, right? So the activity which is happening between event 1 to 2, right? So it takes from event 1 to event 2. The starting event is 1 and ending event happens to be 2. And the time schedule which is given is very, very important for you. Now these are time estimate. Now the first time estimates, maybe you can treat it as the most optimistic guess. Like this 1 to 2 activity may take in 2 days time. You can complete it in 2 days time. On an average is M, which basically A was the most optimistic guess. M is some sort of average guess. In this particular case, we have used 3 days, let's say, right, in weeks and so 3 weeks. And B happens to be the most pessimistic approach, like if something goes wrong, then how much time it will take. So we are assuming that it takes only 4 weeks in that particular case. Now similarly, the second activity, now please note the schedule of activity here. The activity is from 1 to 2, another activity is from 1 to 3, another activity is from 1 to 4, and all these 3 activities, that is 1 to 2, 1 to 3 and 1 to 4, may be performed in parallel, right? Now the time in weeks for 1 to 3 activity happens to be like activity which starts from event 1 and completes in the occurrence of event 3. The minimum, the most optimistic time is 4 weeks. The average time is 7 weeks. And most pessimistic time is 10 weeks. Now from given these timings, how can we calculate a time of a particular activity which we can estimate? So estimated time of a given activity. The formula for that is the estimated time of activity is 1/6 of A, which is the most optimistic time, plus 4 times the M, which happens to be the average time, plus the B, that is the pessimistic time. So you are adding it and dividing it by 6. So in this particular case, what you can see for 4, 7 and 10, 7 4 is 28 plus 10, 38 plus 4, 42, and we are dividing it by 6, so we get 7. So which was for 1 to 3. So likewise, all the activities, all the time estimated times for various activities is estimated. Please notice activity 2 to 5, which happens to be a dummy activity, so obviously it will have a 0 time of completion, right? And there are other activities 1, 2 to 5, 2 to 6. So for each one of these activities, the time has been estimated, which varies from 3 to 11. In fact, we can call it 0 to 11, but technically that is a dummy activity. So minimum time of in weeks happens to be 3 weeks for activity 1 to 2, right? And that is the case also from if activity is from event 5 to event 6. And the maximum time happens to be if the activity is from event 3 to event 7, that particular activity which is taking 11 weeks. So this is the kind of figure which we have to produce from our efforts. I mean, these data will not be available to us. We got to get this particular data. We got to plan this particular data. We got to get, from our experiences. The project managers are supposed to do this only. They plan these data and then create the estimated time for completion of various activities. Now, this is the typical PERT diagram or PERT chart, which basically shows whatever activities which we have shown in the example. So what we can see that 1 to 3, 1 to 2, 1 to 4 and 1 to 3, these are different 3 activities which are going in parallel, and their estimate, the PERT chart is going to, I mean, you can create this particular PERT chart yourself. We had already explained the process of creating the PERT chart, and the slack time and all those kinds of things has been discussed with you about the PERT diagram. But important thing over here, what you need to know, that in this particular PERT chart, the path 1 to 4, right, event 1 to event 4, that is one critical path. I mean, the critical path is like this: event 1 to event 4, event 4 to event 5, then event 5 to event 6. Onto the top you can see that particular line, that from 6 to 7 is slightly thicker, right, and then from 6 to 7. So this becomes your critical path, and this particular path and alternative paths which you are going to have is your alternative path is from event 1 to event 3 at the top. I think it is event 2, event 1 to event 2, from event 2 to event 6, and then from event 6, I think you can come back to whatever event it is in this particular case, and it can get completed. And the third path is going to be event 1 to event 3, and then from that event it goes to 7. Now how it can be converted into a schedule. Now this is a typical schedule which is available in this particular case. So you start with 1, so your schedule start at 1, and at in 3 weeks time you got to, I mean, this is the early start, earliest start, like when the various activity needs to be started. So this particular schedule is for early start. Similarly, you can create for late start also, right? So from 1 to 2, so that is the first activity you are performing. Then 2 to 6, the next activity you are performing. You can come back to 6 or because from here, because 6 is there, so 6 is parallelly showing as a dummy activity. So once 6 gets completed, then the 7 will be done. And the what you can see is a critical path. The critical path is, there is no broken line, right, for the critical path. What you see, 1 to 4, 4 to 5, 5 to 6, and 6 to 7. So this particular activity, what you see is your critical path. In all other paths which are not critical paths, you will find the 7th activity and a dummy activity which is being listed, or dummy path which is being shown to you. So this is the schedule, early start schedule, like at what point of time a particular activity will get completed and the next activity will start. So this particular thing is going to govern your project. For example, in 6 weeks time, if I look back at project, your activity 4 should get completed, your activity 2 should have got completed by that, and 3 weeks have passed for activity 6, or I mean the activity from event 2 to event 6, it's already 3 weeks old, right? And activity 1 to 3 is just, is about to be completed in 1 more week, because it requires 7 weeks time. So like that you can make an assessment what exactly is the present scenario of my project as far as early start schedule is concerned. If there are if something is missing, or at some point of time you are lacking, and if you are lagging in critical path, that is a very, very critical stuff. If you lag in critical path, the project may get delayed, right? So at this time itself, you will come to know that my project might be delayed. So therefore, it is very, very important that we take care of our this schedule very, very meticulously. We take care that all the activities which are falling on critical path gets completed in time, right? All the events get completed in time. All the activities are performed as per schedule. And if that happens, there may be slight gaps which may be allowable when you are looking for other parts, specifically when we are moving from 2 to 6, right? So we might relax over there a little bit. I mean not relax, but then allow a slight delay in that particular situation. Similarly, from 3 to 7, we might allow a little bit of delay, but not otherwise. Like in the critical path, no delay is recommended. So this is the way our schedule helps in diagnosing, like where exactly our project is failing, where exactly we need to put more resources, where exactly we should not compromise, and how we can consider, like we might change if in case the need so be. So what are the tips, or finally what are the basic essence of effective scheduling? Right. So get the very first input here is, you get input from the stakeholders. If stakeholders are not involved, scheduling is never going to be good, right? Team participation is of utmost importance when you are dealing with the scheduling. Then you can refer to past projects as far as time and other things are concerned. Like if an organization has already that kind of an history, then they know what kind of projects they can schedule the best way, right? Identifying key activities. So key activity identification is very, very important. If you are not able to do that, your schedule is going to fall behind, or is going to go haywire, or you may be ending up wasting a lot of resources. Consider holidays and vacations also. Whenever you are considering the effective scheduling, holidays and vacations are very, very important, because without them, your planning, your effective scheduling, I mean, you will be missing on certain things, right? And it is very essential that the team also get breaks, judicial breaks in between whatever they are entitled to. So that is where the holidays and vacation becomes very fulfilling for the team member, and then they can restart with the same figure. So with this, in this particular session, what we have discussed about is about project scheduling. What are the basic objectives of project scheduling? What are the basic way or basic steps of performing the project scheduling, like planning, finding activities, right? Then determining the sequence of those activities, and then finding the timings, and then putting everything in place. And we have also discussed this with the help of an example. An example normally helps us in understanding the concept in a better way. So with this, I end this particular session. Thank you. Next, we meet in the next session. Thank you.